Hey everybody, welcome back to the Danger Planet. I'm Brandon, this is Doug. Say hello.
Hello.
Today we're talking about the We Are Brave squad pack with Queen Amidala. Doug, make an Amidala noise.
Naboobian privilege.
No, you gotta say aggressive negotiations.
Oh, sorry. Aggressive negotiations.
No, you gotta say negotiations.
No.
Because she says it with associations, you know?
No.
Actually, I don't think that's technically Padme. I think that's when Sabe is cosplaying as Padme, but I might be wrong. Anywho, that's what we got. Wild. Okay, so this is a new squad pack for Star Wars Shatterpoint. It has submodels in it. It has 3 units led by my favorite and yours, Queen Padme Amidala, who I wish I had tracked. I wish I had remembered where I saw it. I think it was in the Star Wars Shatterpoint Facebook group where someone was like real upset, and I completely agree because they're very correct that Amidala is in like ceremonial robes and it's insane. She can't move in those. It's nonsense. Don't do this. Why you do this to us? There, Atomic Mass. But we have Queen Padme Amidala. She has a couple of abilities of note. Firstly, she has an activated ability called Royal Command, which lets you choose an allied Galactic Republic unit, and every character in the chosen unit can advance, which is pretty good. You know, having two support characters get a full advance movement is pretty strong, and there's no range, so one force totally worth it. We have another ability that we've definitely seen before, Coordinated Fire, but this is Coordinated Fire 2 damage, which we haven't seen before. We've only seen, I think the Commandos have Coordinated Fire 1 damage, but unlike most of the Coordinated Fire, this Coordinated Fire functions on Handmaiden units, not Galactic Republic, which is a little confusing because she has the Galactic Republic unit in Royal Command, and I'm kind of sad that we didn't see that way. It probably would have made her quite a bit better, but nonetheless, we have two extra damage. It's nothing to shake a stick at. But so whenever a Handmaiden unit, which are the only, right now the two other units that come in this box, does an attack as part of a combat action, before dice are rolled, you can use this. If the unit's within 5 of Amidala, they will suffer 2 damage. But again, it's a reaction ability, so it costs no force initially. But if she becomes wounded, it'll cost a force.
Can you payday
yes, you can. Yeah, Orasing, best
and best
handmaiden. Bounty hunters. I don't think bounty hunters are the best handmaidens, but
no, they would be amazing handmaidens because
they're top 4.
No, if you go with a bounty hunter and you payday, or like if you can payday, if you can get an activation where those 2 bounty hunters are proccing 2 damage per coordinated fire, but I just don't think you'd like
one of them will proc 2 damage per coordinated fire. Yeah.
So I'm just telling the internet that I'm gonna have 4 handmaidens and 2 of them will just be bounty hunters.
Sure. Yeah, and just ping out the damage on Amidala. I guess that is a way you could do it for...
I just want more bounty hunter handmaidens. That's all I want.
All right. Well, you can have as many bounty hunter handmaidens as you want. You just have to pay a force every time the bounty hunters activate.
Watch.
Yeah, you can. Totally legit. We have Crack Shot, which is her innate ability, which is they have sharp. She just factually has Sharpshooter too, but whenever she makes a focus action, she gets to do a dash, which is pretty good. So if she, basically instead of having a move, you're going to focus with her first, and then she'll have 3 extra dice on the Sharpshooter shot. And then her innate ability is one of the dual modal innate abilities that we've seen in later boxes.
Yeah, this one's a doozy.
That depends on her stance card, which side it's on. So as long as she's not wounded, as long as there's 1 or more characters in this unit, it's just her contesting an active objective. If she's in Faith in Diplomacy, allied Galactic Republic supporting characters can contest the same objective that she is contesting, even while they're wounded, which is pretty strong. I will say she doesn't have that much health, but she's got a bunch of good defensive abilities. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But so she's in Faith and Diplomacy, which is her sort of more defensive side, I think. Actually, I don't think that's even true. It's her less aggressive side, probably is the best way to describe it. If she's contesting an objective with some supporting units, Galactic Republic supporting units, then she will. They can contest while they're wounded, which is strong. But if she's in her aggressive negotiations side, and not wounded, then Galactic Republic supporting characters within range 4 of her just get +1 die to their attack rolls, which is also pretty good. It's like, okay. So she's got some stuff, right? When we said she's an 8 squad pack, I didn't say this. She's an 8 squad point character with 3 force points. So pretty run of the mill there. She's got 9 health, 3 lives.
I would say she's like dead average in terms of primary cost and amount of like force given.
Yeah, I would say she's about dead average in every aspect. Period.
No, that's not fair.
You're right. It's not fair. She's probably below average in a number of those regards. But she got 2 stances, right? We talked about that already. So both of them are range 4 ranged attacks, right? So that's definitely something that I think is worth noting, that she is a ranged primary character. We haven't seen many of those yet.
I think the way that this character plays basically is that she's a support ranged character that you can use her to proc off of as like a turret base. So if you can get her into also her fast action moves 2 models.
Yeah,
like it's if you can shoot it, you can have it proc off of a single model. That's fine, like a big beater, like a Mace Windu or like an Anakin.
I mean, she can also use it to move herself if she needs to, right?
Yeah,
she is an allied Galactic Republic unit.
If you choose a supporting unit, i.e., if you choose Handmaidens, 2 models make a full move, which is
anywhere on the board to anywhere, and there are definitely circumstances where that has a lot of play to it for sure.
And then Crackshot seems like a nice to have in her kit. Like, okay, it's fine.
Okay. Well, she is a ranged character,
but her coordinated fire.
So ideally,
her coordinated fire is really spicy.
Yeah. So she's basically, if you're attacking with her, I think there's no world that you're not going to take one of her actions focus, the other action attack. So if you need to spend the point to move her, you can spend a force point to move her, and then she focuses, gets another dash, and then has 10 dice on her ranged attack, or 9 if she's in Faith and Diplomacy. And like her track's fine in aggressive negotiations. She's got a crit on 1, a crit on 2, and an extra hit, and then on 3 she's got 2 crits and a hit, which is really good. That's very strong. On her ranged attack, her melee attack is just all hits. Like, you probably shouldn't be melee attacking with her. Likewise, on her Faith and Diplomacy side, she has no crits on her ranged attack, which is sort of bad. But she doesn't. But I will say, 9 dice. If she gets 4 expertise, she just gets 4 extra hits. So you might be able to just force through some nonsense on that, regardless. So in that sort of volume, maybe that's not that bad. But crits are sort of where it's at,
So an interesting thing is looking at her defensive training. She has a lot of different heals on 1 and 2 is just a defensive block and a heal, but then she can get to 2 different heals. And she can pulse out a lot of status condition removal, and also just a lot of healing stuff. But I feel like the biggest thing that a lot of people would take for granted, not necessarily immediately looking at this card, is that she can remove conditions like a boss if people are around her.
Yeah,
passively.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's sort of weird that it changes a little bit, and it seems to flop 1 or 2 things each time. So on her aggressive negotiation side, it's 1 and 2 is a block and a heal, which it is on Faith and Diplomacy, and then it's 2 blocks and a heal, or 1 block and 2 heals, and then 5 up is block, miss it, a crit becomes a miss, heal, and then it's either a block or a second heal. But so she basically gets double heals on 3 or more expertise in Faith and Diplomacy, which is super strong against a wider range of things. Not only can she just heal 2 off herself, she can heal conditions off friendlies within 2. She can heal 2 conditions off herself, heal 1, condition 1. So there's definitely some play to it, right? It's more defensive than it seems initially, I think, for sure.
Yeah, it's also just utility E.
Yeah, and Faith and Diplomacy has my favorite thing to see, which is the first bit of damage is a shove, right? So it's shove, pin, shove, and it's you get 3, you get 4 damage, which is it's not bad, right? She's throwing a good amount of dice.
She's just spiking people off of objectives basically with her gun.
Yeah, and in aggressive negotiations, I mean, she's assuming you focus. Murder. She's got 10. She can do.
Aggressive negotiations, she can do some murder.
8 damage easily. You got crits going through. She has some heal on her offensive track, which is always cool, and a reposition if you need it. So there's play, right? She does things. Her
aggressive
hard
negotiation is good. It's a good damage track.
Yeah, her hard damage cap is 8, so you're probably not going to try and kill primaries with her, but she's good at messing with secondaries for sure.
Or
and
a primary that has some amount of damage on it.
ideally you're going to be in a position where you're pulsing out the 2 damage here and there with coordinated fire, because she's going to be like sort of up in the middle of the board,
Right. You want to put
doing
like
stuff.
I think the
right?
idea is that you really want to make sure that if you're fielding this model, if you're feeling the queen, as they would say, you want to be proccing her coordinated fire ability, because it's so important to get all of that chip damage out, because then it allows her to then just turn around and be like, oh, you've taken coordinated fire, chonk, you're dead. Like,
Yeah.
because she can throw 10 dice.
Yeah.
Right? Her sharpshooter 2 allows her to throw 10 dice on aggressive negotiations.
Yeah, I think the thing that I like about her is that when she's good, she's good. The thing I don't like about her is that the combination of her coordinated fire and servant of the people abilities mean that you want her to be basically in the center of the board, holding objectives. And with 9 health and not a lot of defensive tech outside of being able to heal a little bit, like for a character that wants to be in the fray, she just seems very punishing, because you're not going to be able to chunk out the coordinated fire left and right if she takes a wound, right? Because then it's going to cost you an extra thing all the time. Both of her identity abilities don't function while she's wounded, and like I wish she had either more defensive tech or evasion or cover, or more health.
I think the intercede on the Naboo Royal Handmaidens is what you're meant to move her up as like a bubble.
With the Handmaidens. Yeah, I guess. I mean, it is nice. I will say that it is a good point, because Royal Command, you move them up and then move her up. So I guess that's a strong point. But we'll get to the Handmaidens in a second. But I think Amidala, I think we got have her locked in.
Now we have Sabe. We have Amidala at home. Amidala.
Yeah, this is Sabe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Get in the comments, But Sabe, I believe, is her like left hand person, but also was her body double when she needed somebody to act as queen.
This is it. We have Queen Amidala at home. Amidala.
Yeah. So Sabe, Royal Bodyguard, is a 4-cost support unit, secondary unit rather. And she's got a couple things. So she has a tactic called Loyal Protectors. So at the start of this unit's activation, every allied handmaiden character can dash toward an allied primary character, which includes herself. She is an allied handmaiden character. And it'll also have the handmaidens. And hell, when you activate her at the beginning of a thing, you could payday all your bounty hunters or a sing, who can also be a handmaiden for a day. To dash towards that primary character. So you while she's on the board, she does make Amidala, a lot more active in that respect. She has exposed flank as an activated ability, which is each character in this unit may climb. If any character in this unit ends this movement at a higher elevation, she gets sharpshooter 1 until the end of the turn and immediately takes a focus action, which means spend 1, move her, plus 2 dice on her ranged attack, which is quite frankly very strong. She has coordinated assault as well, but it's such a weird, I'm just so confused by this. It's cool. I love this function of it. Coordinated assault short dash. So, but why is her coordinated assault Galactic Republic and Padme's is Handmaidens? That's so infuriating. But I mean, it has to be because otherwise you wouldn't be able to Galactic, because obviously Padme doesn't have Handmaiden, so it has to be because you want to do it with the Handmaidens and Padme.
It's just a better keyword. It's a big keyword.
So Sabe out of keyword hire would go crazy with it. Probably not, but maybe. But so she says when a Galactic Republic makes an attack as part of a combat action before dice are rolled, this character gets to dash. So Sabe gets to dash, not the other things. Normally you're doing the coordinated assault, I think is more of an offensive thing, but in this case it's she's I'm gonna get in the action, which it's very interesting.
And then she also adds to the Death Star. This box plays like a bubble Death Star. You put it close to one another and you move it up the board. Crew. Yeah, you move it up the board.
And then, of course, she has her innate ability, Bodyguard. So allied primary characters within 2 and secondary characters in 2 have cover 1.
Yeah.
Right. Which, for what it's worth, cover is an ability that changed a little bit after the release of the game. So cover means you get an extra die against ranged attacks. It doesn't function in melee, but you a lot of people I think are going to be confused a little bit by this because of the change to hunker tokens. Hunker tokens allow you to get cover from terrain specifically, but abilities like bodyguard, like on these guys, on Sabe and the other guys, they still give you cover. Doesn't matter if you have a thing or not, although it won't function in melee. So if she's near people and they're getting shot, they get it even if they don't have hunker tokens.
Yeah, and I think you said it, but the other important example of this in the game right now, guys, is
the
Magna Guard. So
yeah.
like you're definitely, if you haven't seen it yet, you're definitely going to see it with the release of her or the Magna Guard. This is going to start coming up in games a lot. So.
Or both.
Or both.
I guess. And then she's got 9 health, 2 lives, because she's a secondary unit, of course, and she's a Galactic Republic and Handmaiden. Yeah, I mean, like looking at her, her stance card. She has 1 stance card because she's a secondary character, decoy, and it's got stuff. That's for sure. So she's got 7 or 6 dice, 5 dice defensively, range 4 on her ranged attack. Her ranged attack is 1 gives you a crit, 2 gives you a crit and 2 hits, which is pretty spicy, and 4 gives you a crit and 3 hits. Even melee, she's got a crit and a damage on 1 to 2, and 3 she's got a crit, a hit, and a damage. So like she's got good expertise abilities on both. She always crits on 1, which is quite strong.
Yeah, really.
She has always crits on 1 and
her
damage
2 expertise result on her blaster is nuts, and also her combat training is really good. Honestly.
Yeah. And then like defensively, she's like fine too. She's got 5 defense dice. 1 to 2 gives you a block. 3 gives you a block, and a crit becomes a miss, which is really, really critical. And that literally, and then 5 gives you a block, a crit, a miss, and a reposition.
Yeah, like looking at her track, the only thing that she doesn't do is she just doesn't do a ton of burst damage. But almost anything else, she can sprinkle on conditions. She can't expose you, which is okay, fine. She can't expose.
Yeah,
but she has a lot of things going for her. We pointed this out before, and it's something I love to see. Is a 1-track push mechanic on a ranged model, because you can just fucking point at a model that's on an objective and just be like, you are not on that objective anymore because you're about to be shot off. Boom.
Yeah. And you're in a position where you have a character on a thing, and then you shoot off a whole and flip an objective that she's not even in danger of being damaged by being near, right? So it's super strong. And at throwing 9 dice, because you're presumably going to expose flank to climb on something and get sharpshooter with a free focus. Throwing 9 dice, you can absolutely hit the end of her track, which is going to be like 5 damage and 3 shoves, and pinned and on disarm, right?
Yeah. The only other model I remember that having this many shoves on their track natively was Barasofi.
Yeah, I will say I think I probably am a little lukewarm, if not cool, on Amidala, but I do like Sabe. I think she definitely has some stuff, and I think is just strong in her own right, which is what I look for.
Sabe would be totally reasonable to hire, just like into a list to try her out.
Because like even if you're not playing her with Handmaidens, as long as you're in Galactic Republic, her coordinated assault still works, and her loyal protector still lets her move, right? So like, fine, that's not even a downside.
Yeah,
I think Sabe has,
and also
for sure.
And also her bodyguard works. Like all of her things. They designed this card really well because it does what they want it to do in this box set. It definitely does, but it also does what you want it to do outside of this box set, which is really cool. So I think you probably will say Sabe as a out of keyword hire.
I think so for sure. Yeah, you will never see Amidala without both Sabe and the Handmaidens. It's not going to happen.
It's designed as a Death Star bubble. So,
but Sabe I think for sure definitely has a lot of likes outside.
Yeah. I think that as we talk about this, it's actually kind of changing how I had viewed this box when I was writing up my show notes, which is interesting because I had written down in big letters, ranged support model, and I think like range support primary, range support supporting, and then Sabe I just wrote like good hire, like she just is good, right? She can put her in almost anything, she'll probably be effective. But what I'm kind of thinking now is like these models are very much a bubble support crew where you want to keep them together and you want to move them up into the middle of the board so that their whole bubble of their range 4, because they're not range 5 notably, and that's kind of a big difference in range. So you want to have them in a spot where they can kind of just like chill out and get the overlapping synergy buffs from one another, but still have a really effective threat range bubble. If something is only shooting like 3 or 4, you don't want to pull it too far to the left or the right of the map because you start to lose net coverage from an AoE like control standpoint. Like, you really want this bubble to be sitting centrally in a FU opponent position. At least my opinion is like how you want to run this. And I think you're right. I mean, like, people are going to mess around with it. People are going to take Queen Amidala with all sorts of other crazy stuff because that's the nature of Shatterpoint, and that's why it's fun, and that's why part of this game is really interesting and awesome. But I think kind of like how the show notes were written when the designers were doing this thing was as a like big bubble Death Star crew that moves. And when I say Death Star, it's a terminology actually that is from like Mark II War Machine. It's like models that hang out together and move up the board as a very scary killer unit. I'm not talking about Death Star in the Star Wars universe.
I mean, arguably, they are sort of a Death Star killing unit because that was their whole deal. Something, galactic, something. Something, Jar Jar Binks.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I think, there's definitely some interesting bits that I think they're more subtle than straightforward. They've really exposed a flank in my argument of,
badoom.
Oh, we've seen it. Okay. Speaking of exposed flank, though, we have the Naboo Royal Handmaidens to talk about, who also have exposed flank. Right?
Were you waiting for the laugh track? You're gonna play the laugh track, aren't you?
Well, I'm obviously I paused so I can edit in the laugh track afterwards.
That's how that works.
Or the crickets. It could go either way. It's hard to tell. I flip a coin and I either add crickets or laugh track when I'm editing. So
good.
So exposed flank again, spend a force climb. If they climb, they get sharpshooter and a free focus, which is great on a support unit for sure. By the way, the Naboo Royal Handmaidens are a 4-cost support unit. They have 2 models. So they have exposed flank, just like Sabe. They have coordinated fire, just like Sabe, except their coordinated fire is disarm, which, like, probably is the worst option for coordinated fire.
Probably.
It's okay. It's a support thing, right? It's like you're making your opponent's attacks less gross and egregious. And if you're looking at damage tracks that have disarm, which like Sabe's do, Amidala has one. It's potentially more damage because it doesn't go away right away, and you can't get double conditions. You just take a damage if you do that. But they also have intercede, just like Sabe does, because they're handmaidens. Or not, I'm sorry, not intercede. Oh, that's them. I'm sorry. They also have intercede, which is their innate ability, which is just while this unit is not wounded, enemy characters engaging one or more of them cannot target allied primary characters or allied secondary characters with attacks.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Is like
you get them in to engagement, and that's what we got.
You layer the defensive buff from Sabe onto them, and then you run them up the board with Padme, and then like they can't hurt Padme, so they have to kill the Naboo Royal Handmaidens, and then the more I look at this, the more I
still count for contesting the objective, and there's a lot of synergy.
Yeah, it's a bubble synergy crew.
I just don't know if it's good. And they have 8 health and 2 lives, right? So
I think this list is fine. I think if you're gonna take the whole bubble Death Star of this list, you should probably figure out a way to additionally support it. Like one of the one of the things that
second primary is for this is going to be really
what I think the second primary would be really good for this is run Obi-Wan because he has tons of heal procs native to his track, and he can like stand up pretty tall, and if you can then you get additional defensive stuff on him because of Sabe. He can help hold the bubble in the middle, and then that means you probably want to take like the killiest possible primary.
Yeah, you absolutely have to take a combat murder machine with them for sure.
Like light side Anakin, or like Vader, or like Grievous.
Yeah, and I mean,
that just kills shit.
I mean, gimmick aside, I think Anakin actually probably is an ideal decision. I think Obi-Wan would be great for the hunker, but you're not really gonna probably be doing that DPS too much.
You want melee DPS. You want the ability to activate and remove a model.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Obi-Wan can activate and remove models just as well, and attacks the whole crew that is now wants to be in melee and will be getting an extra Diagon defense in melee. But I think you got to do something. They need a strong thing. it is worth noting that every single model in this entire box basically either has sharpshooter or would likely get sharpshooter during their activation. So if we ever see like a massive buff to sharpshooter or like an all shooty list, maybe this will peak up in power level a little bit. We didn't talk about their stance card. So just real quick, their absolute loyalty is the Naboo Royal Handmaiden stance card. They have 2 entry points to their combat tree, which is either a damage and a heal or a damage and a jump, which is like interesting. And they got a couple damage along the way: damage, disarm damage, exposed damage, reposition. So they're not doing a lot of damage, but they have no crits at range. 1 crit on 2 or more dice with melee, but their exposed flank gives them sharpshooter, so that's a little bit of score energy there. Score energy, by the way, is also a War Machine term. I don't know why this happens to be that we're going to use War Machine terminology videos, but when I say score energy, I mean it's like sort of negative synergy, like it's synergy that misses the mark and doesn't actually synergize at all, much like the Scorn did in Mark II.
But they have, I think, an important part of their track here, and it's like a really important part of their track, is that as you dink people, they heal themselves because they're going to be taking damage, and they can heal themselves up to 2 if they get any track progressions.
They both do it.
And if they both hit things, they can just make sure that they keep topping themselves up, so they themselves can keep. They don't even need to kill shit. They can just like chip damage onto things, which as they do will proc the coordinated fire, and then as they do that, they also heal their health bank up, probably by 2 a turn, ideally, and then they're kind of like going down on the opponent's turn and up on your turn. Unless somebody hits you with like a primary that just like one taps them, basically.
Yeah. Which any help is possible, but like that's true of any secondary, so that's not a negative against them at all. And their defense is like 1 or 2 they get a block, 3 or more they get a block and cancel a crit, which is a thing that we don't see very frequently on supporting units. If we've ever seen that at all on supporting units, quite frankly, I don't know that we have. Yeah, interesting box, I think, for sure. I'm not gonna not buy it, right? That's for sure. And I'm not gonna say even that I'm never gonna try this box. But out of all of the boxes, I think Whelmed probably under is my whole opinion on this, which sort of sucks because I really like the models and I'm cannot wait to use like contrast wet blending to wet blend those handmade cloaks because they're cool models and they got like cloaks wet blending cloth with contrast paints over like a slap chopped base coat is just super fun. I love doing it, and these are the perfect models to do that with.
I think honestly my opinion is that these are going to be good. I think what you're going to see is that it plays distinctly differently than how a lot of other crews have played up until now. But yeah, like the coordinated fire proc pings as a 2 damage like natural on these creatures or creatures I guess handmaidens that like heal themselves but also also have the ability to like stick there. You just need to make sure that you don't lose your handmaidens. Like this, if you lose your handmaidens, this list is really strong.
As long as everyone hasn't taken a wound yet, like if you're all in a bubble,
even if
like
they're wounded, even if they're wounded,
Amidala,
it doesn't matter because of Padme's ability.
Sure, not what I was talking about though. So if everybody's up front and not wounded, and you're attacking with them, like if you get 2 hits, you're doing 5 damage, right? If you get 2 hits with both of them, which I think is very reasonable. So like realistically in melee, like you know, if you're proccing at Padme's coordinated fire, Sabe's getting closer, you're proccing Padme's coordinated fire. Like I think that could be a really effective damage machine, which is not something that I think anyone is going to expect when you get charged by handmaidens.
Yeah, no one's gonna expect that.
Cause like, yeah, she definitely, you can contest while you're wounded with Padme, but when you're, when they're all fully functional, I think that they're definitely very scary, but that synergy evaporates the second anybody's wounded.
Because you don't want to lose handmaidens.
It's just going to cost more. It's just going to cost more, like, 2 or 3 force to do it, right? Padme's wounded, you're spending 2 force to proc that. And then that's probably not worth it at that point, right?
But
which is why you need it with a really murdery secondary or second primary.
Yeah, but I think the concept is that you keep the handmaidens next to Padme to protect them. So the models that you're losing initially are gonna be the handmaidens.
Yeah.
Like the whole concept is that you make a bubble, and that because of intercede, like they have to attack the handmaidens. So really, what you're judging is from a damage output perspective from your opponent, how quickly can they get the first wound onto Intercede? Because while this unit is not wounded, so if they can put one wound onto the Handmaidens, then they can just turn around and start housing primaries and secondaries. But until they do that, they need to play by the rules of your death bubble. And so, like, that is why the question you're asking your opponent is, how quickly can you wound my Handmaidens? Because my Handmaidens, when they activate, can heal 2 per activation. Pretty reliable. So please go F yourself, Mr. Opponent.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I mean, 2 isn't a
Opponent.
lot. 2 isn't
Right, but you layer
magic
other
value.
synergies into that, such
Yeah.
like Obi-Wan. Because
I
Obi can pulse heal like 3 or 4 on a turn. Pretty easy.
Yeah, I do really wonder if Luminara is if a full synergy, I'm just gonna support everyone all the time.
I was thinking that while we were
Could work.
making this episode. I was like, I'm going to run Luminara with this.
Because I feel like that game goes one of 2 ways. It's like, okay, well, my opponent spent every activation trying to damage my models and just couldn't ever under any circumstances, and I just won. Or, oh, my bubble went down and then my whole crew died immediately.
Yeah, but that's how bubble crews worked. Like, and
Yeah.
also,
Yeah, more so than most.
yeah, and also like we're
yeah.
talking about this as chip damage. Most of
Yeah.
these attacks we were talking about are 5 damage attacks. It starts to stop being chip damage when it's like 3 or 4 damage. It starts to just be an attack. It's not gonna full track you. Everybody says that's the sexiest thing out there, which it is pretty sexy to full track someone on a single attack. And
yeah.
also like it's no longer chip damage, it's just damage output.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is
very
interesting.
very, very interesting. I hope, you know what, I will say, I'm underwhelmed by this box for sure, and I hope that I am proven wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
I'm gonna try a couple games with it and see what happens. I mean, it's a different play style than anything I've even seen so far, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how it's gonna go, because I'm pretty sure the way I'm gonna play this is bubble up, run up the middle, try to hold the middle, and like profit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that covers the We Are Brave squad pack, I think, pretty succinctly. We've talked about pretty much all the angles and what our hopes are. Hopefully I'm wrong. I'd love to see that, because I would really like to see these models be super cool. The models themselves are super cool, and if you want to see like how people are painting them, check out the Goonhammer article. We'll link below. You should check them out anyway. They're super great for any sort of miniature gaming content on the internet. I'll tell you, like I mentioned before, my plan, I'm going to slap drop the Handmaidens, and I'm going to use, I think I've said contrast paints a few times, which would be a great way to do this. I've been really in love with the Pro Acryl transparent range recently, and they have a really good orange, a really good red, and a really good yellow. And I'm gonna wet blend with the glaze medium the hell out of these with Pro Acryls.
I think it's the objectively correct way to do it is to
use Pro Acryl.
glaze wet blend them.
Dude, glaze wet blending Pro Acryl transparents. Let me just, I could talk about that for hours. I love it. It's like my favorite thing. Or just wet blend them. I mean, wet blend them, but it's so much easier because they have all these nice little folds where the like really stark white highlights will just come through super well with a slap chop. So like, wet blending and glaze medium, I think transparency is the way to go on these. But your mileage may vary. Let us know in the comments below and on our Discord what you're gonna do. Show us some pictures of your cool models. So jump in. You can find a link to our Discord below. Like and subscribe, because we're super cool and fun to hang out with and chat with, and you should do that.
Seamless outro.
We did it.
We did it.